Hello and welcome to Oakland A's UK. I'm Matt Smith. First off, thanks to everyone who shared the news of our launch of our new YouTube channel on Twitter, Facebook and all of that. Much appreciated. As we're coming to the end of January, it seemed like a good time to take stock of where the A's have got to in the off-season to this point. Have a look at the ins and outs so far and what further business may be in the offing. I'm going to split it into two videos, so this one will focus on position players and then we'll have another video about the pitching staff. Now, a quick caveat with all of this, videos like these do run the risk of some breaking news coming along in between recording and publishing, especially for a newbie like me. That almost happened, in fact, because I was planning to record these on the Friday and I postponed it to today, Sunday. And on Friday evening, UK time, lunchtime, Oakland time, the A's signed Marco Estrada. So maybe we've been working some magic already and tempting fate and getting us a good news signing. Who knows? Anyway, let's get to it and have a look at the position players. We'll start behind the plate, where there's been one out and one in so far. Although it's up for debate, I think, as to whether that's where things are going to end. So firstly, of course, Jonathan Lucroy has left as a free agent and joined the Angels, and we've signed Chris Herman. Now with the Lucroy news, I'm a little mixed on that, if I'm being honest. Considering the deal he signed with Lajedos, I'm surprised the A's didn't kind of go for that if it was on the table for the A's, but there we go, he did struggle at the plate last year, so you can kind of understand if the A's front office think they can upgrade at that position. I'm fine with that. With Chris Herman, I think the big thing about him is the roster flexibility he potentially provides. Now, the A's are like plenty of MLB teams that have gone with 13 pitchers at certain points in the season, and you do think with Oakland, having the extra 8th arm in a bullpen will be important. So, the payback for that, the thing you have to balance out, of course, is that normally means you lose the position player on the bench. Well, with Chris Herman, he kind of makes that a little bit easier for Bob Melvin, because if he's not starting at catcher, you've got a lefty pinch hitter you can turn to who isn't just restricted to being a backup catcher. He can play an adequate corner outfield too, potentially even first base. So I think that will be quite useful for Bob Melvin, and like I say, helps out if we're going for the 8th man in the bullpen. So the question from there is that where we finish? Is that our catching duo, Chris Herman and Josh Phegley? Now, there have been stories recently, I know Jane Lee on MLB.com wrote about this a couple of days ago, that the A's front office are saying, yeah, they're happy enough with that. I don't know, that seems a little underwhelming to me, especially for a team that should be pushing for a playoff place. And I think it really comes down to what the A's front office think of Sean Murphy. Now, they know clearly he's an exciting prospect and should be up at some point in the 2019 season. I'm very excited to see him too. But how quickly is he going to get there? I think breaking camp with a big league club is probably being over-ambitious. He played in AA last year. He did make 3 starts at the end of the season in AAA, but you would expect, conventional wisdom tells you that he'll go to AAA and at least get maybe 6 weeks or 2 months or more in AAA. So maybe the A's front office are happy to go with what they've got until that point and don't want to sign somebody to block him. I can see that, but at the same time, I think I can see that the A's may well look at the free agent market. There are a few names on there: Martin Maldonado, Matt Wieters, Nick Hundy. They're the first ones that come to my mind who are still available. If the A's can get someone like that on a decent 1-year deal, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the A's do make that deal. But we'll have to wait and see how things pan out. It's another 1 out, 1 in situation in the infield, although I think things are a little more settled here than at catcher. We have to say goodbye again to Jed Lowry, of course. It's a shame, but inevitable considering how well he played for us in 2018. He timed it well with that being his walk year, so good for Jed that he's got a 2-year, $20 million contract with the Mets. And, you know, it's a shame to see him go, but at the same time, I'm really happy with the deal the A's have swung in acquiring Jerickson Profar from the Rangers. Now, we know his story, a former number 1 prospect who has had a really tough time with injuries, but he finally had a fairly full season in 2018, playing over 140 games. And when we signed him, General Manager David Forst made the point to say he thinks that now he's had that season under his belt, he's primed for a breakout. And I can see that. I know fingers crossed, there are red flags, of course, with him from an injury point of view, but I can really see this being a trade that people will look back on in August and say, hey, you know what? That was one of the better deals off the off-season. If you look at the finances too, it works out really nicely for the A's. Profar is under contract for the next 2 years, arbitration eligible. He'll earn just over $3.5 million this year. Let's say he gets a raise and it's, say, $9 million over those 2 years. Well, you compare that to $20 million for Jed Lowry, and just on a payroll basis, that's a very clever bit of business, I think, by the A's. The other thing is, take a look at that infield. Olsen, Profar, Semi and Chapman. I mean, that's a really good infield. And when you think that the A's, should be pushing for another playoff berth, then that core there, potentially with Sean Murphy coming up at some point in the season, is something to be really excited about as an A's fan. There's nothing much really to report in the outfield, other than Herman being added to the conversation, I guess. The one thing I would say with the outfield is that, aside from the obvious pitching injuries we suffered last year, the one main disappointment of 2018 for the A's was the form of Dustin Fowler. He came into the season as our big hope to be our regular centre fielder, not just for 2018, but potentially for years to come. And it just never got going for him, did it? He never got going at the plate, and he did struggle. However, he was coming back from a bad knee injury, so some rustiness was perhaps always to be expected. And he did hit much better when he went down to AAA to end the season. So I think there's too much talent there to write him off just yet. I know Ramon Laureano did show flashes of brilliance in the field at points last season, but Fowler does have some upside, I think, and I wouldn't rule him out staking a claim to a place with the A's at some point again in 2019. Looking more widely at the outfield, whilst I don't feel there are any clear holes there, I think if you were neutral looking at the A's and thinking, okay, is this going to be a playoff team? You would look at the outfield and say, that's an area that could do potentially with an upgrade. Now, I don't know how that might work. Given our pitching needs, which we'll come to in the next video, I don't see us spending much in the way of free agent dollars there in the outfield. The one thing I guess you've got to factor in with all of this is Franklin Barreto. I don't think the trade for Jerickson Profile means Barreto's kind of out of favour or out of mind of the A's front office. Certainly they spoke about him at the Fan Fest on Saturday. But you do have to wonder, 2019 kind of should be the year where he finally takes a step forward at the major league level. And if he's being blocked in the infield, is this the year in which he either becomes an outfielder for us, or do we look potentially at trading him away as part of a package to get another outfielder? I don't know. I'd feel reluctant to give up on Barreto at this point, because I think there is a lot of potential there and I'd like to see him kind of blossom in green and gold. But that is something to keep an eye out for, because it may be an option for us to get an outfielder by using him in a trade package. Okay, so is that it? We've done catchers, infielders, outfielders, ins and outs. That seems about enough. No, not for the A's this off-season. Because this off-season we've got the ins list, the outs list, and then the hokey cokey list. Okay then, Kyler Murray, is he in or is he out? I'll start this by saying I know very little about the NFL and even less about college football, so I'm not qualified to talk about that side of this. What I will say is, I don't know about you, but is there really much of it that we've seen over the past 2 months that makes you confident that he will stay with the A's rather than pursue a career in the NFL? I don't see it. There was positive talk from Billy Beane and Bob Melvin at the FanFest on Saturday, but still, I don't know. He's got an invite to spring training, as expected, but that's really going to be the story, isn't it? He's not going to be on the big league roster. It's not going to be a factor there, but will he come to spring training? Is he going to be there? That's going to get a lot of media attention. And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards no, but I hope I'm wrong, because given his athletic ability, his talent, his potential, it'd be a great thing, and also his profile, in fact, it would be a great thing for the A's if they're able to tempt him to pursue a career with the team. So hopefully that works out well for us. But any which way, look, if he wants to go to the NFL, if that's his dream, then you can't really argue with it. The one thing I would say is that it does kind of have an impact on the A's, because we lose that draft pick in effect. It's not a compensation issue where we can kind of get another draft pick for 2019 to make up for it. We signed him. If he doesn't end up coming to us, that's on us. That's been burned. So that is an issue, but it was always a risk that the A's were taking, and Billy Beane was quite clear yesterday at FanFest, or on Saturday at FanFest, that he would do it again. He was happy with the decision. So we'll see if it works out well for the A's, and hopefully it does. Okay, well, that's the position player side of things done and dusted for now. Again, there could be some movement there, but we'll see. I'll do the next video on the pitching stuff, so look out for that one. And that's a bit of a jumble at the moment, isn't it? I know we've made a couple of signings there in Mike Fiers and Marco Estrada, but you do feel like that there's more room for improvement, and we'll see if that does come of anything in the next few weeks. Okay, well, as always, like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Oakland AUK on both Twitter and Facebook, as I've said before. But in my previous video, I neglected to mention that we also have an Instagram account too. Hannah has started that as well, so check that one out too. Thanks again for watching, and keep following along on our A's UK YouTube channel.